Well, this is the last story in volume 2, and it is when Jacob is giving his grandchildren a blessing. There's a kind of a twist, kind of a similar twist to what happened to he and Esau. So let's find out. A grandfather's blessing. Jacob blesses his grandchildren before he dies, is the title. Hurry, the messenger said. Your father's very sick. He thinks he's going to die. Joseph looked worried as he listened to the messenger. Ever since he had brought his father and his family to Egypt 17 years before, there had been nothing but happiness. Jacob and his family had the best pasture in all Egypt. They had plenty of food and good homes. Best of all, they were together. Do you remember they said there was only going to be 5 more years of the famine? So they've been there 12 more years after the famine. Get my chariot ready, Joseph commanded, and tell my sons Manasseh and Ephraim to get ready to leave with me. The messenger hurried to obey, and before long Joseph and his 2 sons were on their way to Goshen. Is he very sick? Joseph's sons asked. Will grandfather die? He is very sick, Joseph answered. We do not know if he will die now, but he thinks he will. At last Joseph and his sons reached Jacob's home. Quietly, they went in to see him. Your son Joseph has come, a servant told the old man. Jacob sat up in bed and tried to look around. He was almost blind now, and he was very, very weak. Come here beside me, he said. Joseph quietly led his 2 sons to their grandfather's bedside. Since Manasseh was the older, Joseph put him at Jacob's right hand. He would get the greater blessing that way, and he put Ephraim at Jacob's left hand. But Jacob crossed his arms. He put his right hand on Ephraim and his left hand on Manasseh. Does that sound familiar to you? When Jacob and Esau got a blessing? But Jacob, when he crossed his arms, Joseph said, No, father, you're doing it wrong. Manasseh is the firstborn. But Jacob would not move his hands. I know what I'm doing, son. Manasseh will be a great person, but Ephraim will be a greater person. Joseph was surprised to hear this, but he knew that his father Jacob had been very close to God. He would say nothing further about this. And then Jacob blessed his grandsons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and he blessed his son Joseph too. Now tell my other sons to come here. The other sons came to Jacob's bedside. They listened carefully as he told each one what would happen to them. At last the blessings were all done. Now I'm going to die. Bury me back home in Canaan, in the cave at Machpelah. That is where Abraham and Sarah are buried. Isaac and Rebekah are there too, and I married Leah in the same cave. When Jacob died, Joseph gave orders for the Egyptians to embalm his body. For 40 days, the Egyptian embalmers did their strange work, and then for 30 more days, the Egyptian people mourned for Jacob. That's 70 days, 10 weeks. Now it was time to take Jacob back to Canaan to bury him. May we go? Joseph asked Pharaoh. May we do what my father asked me to do? Yes, said Pharaoh, you may go. The men in Jacob's family started back to Canaan with many important Egyptians. It was the longest funeral procession that people had ever seen. The people stopped at the threshing floor of Atad, near the place where they would bury Jacob. There they stayed for 7 days crying and mourning. When the 7 days were ended, they buried Jacob in the cave near Machpelah. Now that father is dead, Joseph may try to hurt us for selling him as a slave, his brother said. We must send a message to him. But Joseph had no thought of hurting his brothers. He loved them, even though they had sold him. When Joseph received their message, tears came to his eyes. Don't they know I've already forgiven them? Then Joseph's brothers came to see him. We will be your servants, but please don't hurt us. Oh, don't be afraid, said Joseph. You tried to hurt me by selling me, but God planned all this for good, so that I could keep many people from starving. I will take care of you and your children. Oh, what a wonderful brother, they said as they left Joseph's palace. Now we know for sure that God is with him. So Joseph and his brothers lived happily for many, many years in the land of Egypt. As long as they lived, they never forgot to thank God for all that he had done for them. Well, that completes book 2. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've had some good discussions with Mom and Dad. Bye-bye.